Hey everyone, welcome to the video. This one we're going over the Toyota 500 at Darlington Raceway on Wednesday, May 20th at 7:30 p.m. Yes, we're back to back at Darlington. We're getting midweek races now for the next few weeks, so I'm very excited. We get more races, and the more races, the better. But anyway, before we continue, as always, if you guys could just leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, might as well hit that subscribe button. I'm going to be here all season long trying to help you guys become better NASCAR DFS players, so if you're going to be sticking around the entire season, might as well hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss out whenever I post new content. I'm getting close to 4K subs too, so that's really, really awesome. I think we'll probably hit that this week, so thanks to all who have subscribed already. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at ChrisPennell16. I try to retweet out as much important information that I can, try to retweet as much important information that I can, and also you can just hit me up and I'll try to answer back as quick as I can. And if you're going to support me over on Patreon, I got a lot of new Patreon supporters over the weekend, so I really do appreciate that. I put a lot of extra work into these spreadsheets and my articles, so I really do appreciate the extra support on there. It does mean a lot. If you want to hit the link in the description below, it will take you to my Patreon, which we got well over 100 members now, so again, thanks to everyone that does sign up over there. But if you do hit that link in the description below, take you to a page that looks like this. You get access to my entire NASCAR model, my cheat sheet, my entire data sheet, my Discord chat where you can hit me up any time of the week. I'll answer you. My projections, my core plays, weekly article, tier rankings, which are my own biased rankings, then my own personal GPP exposure, so you know exactly where my money's going. And then my statistical power rankings, which is kind of just like an algorithm thing. It's just based solely on numbers. They're unbiased rankings. Then you get my biased rankings with my tier rankings. But yeah, if you're interested in signing up on Patreon, do appreciate it. Link in the description below. But without further ado, let's preview this race. Oh, and by the way, I did my first ever live stream on Sunday. Hopefully you guys didn't miss it. I think like 1,200 people viewed that. So I think I'm going to start doing those live streams every single race, like on the race day, but like a couple hours before the race, because that was really fun. It got a lot more people than I thought. So I really do appreciate that everyone that stopped in, asked me questions. It was a pretty fun time. I think we got a lot of good information out on that. So I'm planning on doing those every single race day that I can. No promises, but if you guys want more live streams, I will be happy to do that. But anyway, now let's get into the preview. So this is the Toyota 500, and obviously there's your outline of Darlington. This is going to be the same exact thing as last week almost, but there is less laps. So we're at Darlington Raceway. It's a steep oval track. It's 1.3 miles in length. And there's going to be 228 laps this week. Last week, I believe there was 293, so that's like, 50 less laps. And there's only 171 Dominator points available, down from, I think, 220 last week. So Dominator points are a little bit less of a premium, but it's still over 170 fantasy points available just for leading laps. So definitely still important. But I will say the pricing this week, it's a little crazy. And then with a top 20 invert, so what they did with the finishing position from the last race. So obviously Kevin Harvick won, Alex Bowman came in second. So what they did was the top 20, they inverted that. So now Kevin Harvick's going to be starting 20th and Alex Bowman's going to be starting 19th. So you guys can get the rest of the picture there. I do have the qualifying spots on the spreadsheet whenever I flip the page here. But it's going to be interesting this week. There's a lot of cheap guys up front, which make them terrible plays. And there's a lot of really expensive guys that are starting in the back. So this is going to be a really interesting week. And another thing is that Draftkings really priced up the guys that have good PD upside. And they've never done that before because, first off, usually we have qualifying on like Saturday of a usual race week, but Draftkings releases the salaries on around Wednesday afternoon. So they have no idea where the guys are going to qualify. But now that they did, they used it to their advantage and really priced up a lot of these good plays. Like Jimmie Johnson, he's 9,100 starting in the back. I mean, we even got Ricky Stenhouse and Chris Busch around 8K, which they would never be around there. So DraftKings made it tricky this week, but I think that works in our favor because if all those good guys that were in the back are going to be cheap, I mean, they're just the most obvious plays in the world. So I actually think this might work into our advantage as long as we nail our right plays. Like I think we can do that. So I am looking forward to this week. But anyway, let's just go driver by driver. So up top, we have Kyle Busch at 12,000. He is starting 26. So expect him to be very, very popular. And if you guys didn't see the news on Sunday, Kyle Busch was starting 4th. And I originally really liked him as a Dominator, but then he got sent to the back for, I forget what it was. He failed inspection twice, so he dropped to the rear. and you still get scored from your original starting spots. Now, it's not like he was being scored from 40th, which made him an excellent PD play. No, he was starting the race off with negative points. So I completely X'd Kyle Busch out of my player pool, updated my projections on Patreon, told everyone I am not playing Kyle Busch. It was just not worth the risk. And he did not have a good race. So hopefully you guys got off Kyle Busch in time and saw that news. I did tweet that out. I don't know how many people saw it, but yeah, I know a couple people did get burned by Kyle Busch, but all things go well. He's going to be starting 26th this race, and this makes him a really, really good play. I know he doesn't have any wins here the past 6 races, and I know last race was not that pretty, but starting 26th, Kyle Busch can get up front and lead laps and win the race. We saw him do this before at Darlington last year. He started 33rd, got up front, led I believe 118 laps, and got a top 3 finish and almost won the race before scraping the wall at the end. Came right behind Kyle Larson and Erik Jones. So starting 26th, I like him a lot. Now the problem is he is very expensive. So if he just gets the top 5, yeah, it's going to be pretty good. It's going to be well over 60 points, I think, right off the top of my head. But that's a lot of money to spend on just a PD play. And if he doesn't get up front and lead laps, I mean, Kevin Harvick's a little bit cheaper, starting a little bit higher than Kyle Busch. But I feel like Kevin Harvick has a better chance of leading laps. I mean, if we're just paying $12K for place differential, that's a lot of dough. Now, I do like Kyle Busch a lot. I think he definitely has the ability to get up front and lead laps, but man, this is a big price tag to play just for PD because look, a lot of these good PD plays are very expensive. Like, we're not going to be able to fit in Kyle Busch and Kevin Harvick and then just throw in Jimmie Johnson and William Byron for fun. We're going to run out of salary quick. So we're going to have to make some decisions up top this week. Yeah, Kyle Busch is an amazing play. I mean, all likeliness, he'll probably top 5. But if he just gets a top 5 and doesn't lead any laps at this price tag, and then you get someone below him that moves up and leads laps, because a lot of these guys are going to be good PD plays. So I mean, I think personally Kyle Busch is going to have to lead laps to be in the optimal just because of how expensive he is. I mean, he doesn't have to. I mean, maybe Kevin Harvick doesn't have a great race. But just know Kyle Busch, man, he's an amazing play. But if he doesn't lead laps, it's going to be tough for him because you're paying a lot of money for Kyle Busch. With that being said, I'm going to have plenty of exposure to him. I already ran some early preliminary stuff in my model, and he grades out very, very well for me. So I will have quite a bit of Kyle Busch, but just know that's a really steep price tag to play for PD. But he's averaging nearly 50 Draftkings points per race here, average finish of 9.3, average running position of 9.3, 100 driver rating, no wins, but 2 top 5s, 4 top 10s. In all likeliness, he's going to move up. Now, we'll say momentum so far this season, it's not that amazing so far, only averaging 31 DraftKings points per race, average finish of 11.5, running position of 11.6. Does have 2 top 5s, but hasn't been amazing for Kyle Busch so far. But starting 26th, yeah, he's going to move up. I don't know if Vegas put any odds out, but I'd have to assume Kyle Busch is in their top 3 of winning the race. Kyle Busch is good everywhere, arguably the best driver in the entire series. So yeah, he's a good play. Just know that price is really steep, and you're really kind of hoping he can get up front and lead some laps at some point, which is never out of the cards for Kyle Busch, just because of how good he is. And we saw him do that same exact thing before, starting near the back in Darlington just last year. So yes, Kyle Busch, he's a tremendous play, but it's a really big price tag. Right below him, we have Kevin Harvick at 11,600, and I was really high on Kevin Harvick last week, and it worked out very well. I actually ended up upping my Kevin Harvick exposure because I had about 35% Kyle Busch before the race started. Then I knocked that down to 0, and I kind of bumped up Kevin Harvick. I bumped up Truex, and I bumped up Brad Keselowski for the most part. Really worked out for Kevin Harvick. Wish I had even more than 45%, but man, he was awesome. He's averaging 80 DraftKings points per race here, average finish of 4.2, average running position of 4.9, does have a win, just got that win, and he would have 2 wins if I bumped that back a year, but I do the past 6 races, and we just had a race, so that's what the numbers are going to look like. But anyway, 5 top 5s, 6 top 10s. If he doesn't wreck, there's like a 100% chance he is going to finish with positive PD, and probably is going to be in the top 5, and I would be shocked if he doesn't lead any laps. Another thing he has working in his favor is he has the first pit stall. Just because he's starting 20th this race doesn't mean he's going to have the 20th pick at pit stall. He won last week's race, so he gets the first pit stall, which we saw how important that was and how valuable that was last week at Darlington. Kevin Harvick, he was just killing guys on pit road, coming out so far ahead of him. Even when he wasn't in first, came in. He could jump all. He could he jumped a few spots and got out front. I mean, that first pit stall was huge for Kevin Harvick, and I think that's going to be another thing that really helps him out this week again. So another thing to look forward to if you want to play Kevin Harvick. He's also averaging 73 laps led per race here, 32.3 fast laps, and he's great at steep tracks. If you look at the track type form, I'm not going to go over all the numbers here, but I mean, he checks out very well in every single thing. 7 out of the last 10 races at steep tracks, he's in the top 5 at 70%. And he's been absolutely amazing. And if you look at the momentum this season, there's been no one as good as Kevin Harvick so far, averaging 80 DraftKings points per race this season, average finish of 5, average running position of 4.7, 122.9 driver rating, 1 win, 2 top 5s, 4 top 10s, averaging 80 laps led per race. He has been on fire. I love Kevin Harvick. If I had to pick between Kyle Busch and Kevin Harvick, I'm going to take Kevin Harvick. I liked what he did last race. Obviously, he looked amazing, and they said they're not even going to switch his car up, which I don't blame them because that car was the best in the field by far. Great on the restarts. First pit stall on pit road was amazing, and I think that's going to be a big benefactor again. So Kevin Harvick, I love him a lot. I mean, he's the best play in the 11K tier in my opinion. Yes, he's starting 6 spots higher than Kyle Busch, but if I had to guess who was going to lead more laps between Kevin Harvick and Kyle Busch, I'm going to go with Kevin Harvick because he's been amazing this season. I don't see why that speed would change, and he's using the same exact car that he used last race, which was amazing. So everything points to Kevin Harvick having another strong race, and he grades out extremely well in my power rankings model. Right below him, we have Martin Truex Jr. And Martin Truex Jr. was way up and down that last race. So at the very beginning of the race, that car was absolute junk. I forget who said something on Twitter. I think it was Cole Pern, his old crew chief. They had like a hole in the nose, and he was just driving. I mean, I guess he wasn't driving awful. There's nothing he could really do about it because his car was kind of broken. But he was like in the 30s at one point. I had a lot of Martin Truex Jr., so I was like, well, I picked Martin Truex Jr. when he has a junk car. They fixed it up a little bit, but then at one point he got all the way up to second. He was looking really, really strong, but then those Joe Gibbs cars kind of faded a little bit at the end, and he almost had a loose wheel. I think he was reporting a vibration, but that went away. But Truex Jr., he's starting in the same exact spot as he was last race. I don't know if I'm going to see myself paying up for him too much. I mean, his car looked good after they got it fixed. He does have a win here the past 6 races, 4 top 10s. Yeah, he's more than likely going to move up, but for only 500 more, I can get Kevin Harvick that starts 5 spots back. He has the first pit stall. I mean, he looked great last race, so I don't think I'm going to have too much Martin Truex Jr. just because of this price tag. And price is a premium this week because we're not getting really any layups. I mean, last race we had a lot of layups. We had Ty Dillon and John Hunter Nemechek in the 5K range. We had some really cheap 6K and 7K guys starting in the back. Not the case this week, so it's not like just do whatever you want with your salary. You're going to have to pick and choose. So I don't think I'm going to have too much Martin Truex Jr. I think he's going to move up. Could he get up front lead laps? Sure, he could. But Harvick and Kyle Busch I think are just much better plays, and they're starting further back. Yes, I know Truex is the cheapest of this bunch, but I think that's probably deserved. I think Harvick is a much better play, but all 3 of these guys are fine. They're all going to move up, but I think just the most likely to lead laps, it's going to be Harvick and Busch. I really don't see Truex getting up front, but he could always contend for a top 5. But again, you're just paying $11,000 to move up 10 spots, which is not something I'm really sure I want to do. But you could. I wish he was around the 10K range, but 11K is a lot to pay for someone that I really don't think is going to lead many laps, if any. We'll jump down to this 10K tier now. We have Denny Hamlin at 10,700. He qualified 16th, had a pretty good race. Look, he's going to move up. All these good drivers, they finish strong, but they're now, because of the inversion, they're going to be starting in good spots for place differential. And you could just mix and match all of these guys. I'd probably be heavier on Harvick and Busch, but I do realize they're the most expensive, so obviously, but maybe just mix and match these guys because they all ran well at Darlington last race, and I would expect pretty much similar results. But yeah, Hamlin starting 16th, very good at Darlington, averaging 51.9 DraftKings points per race, average finish of 8.7, average running position of 7.2, has a win, 4 top 5s. I mean, he's been very, very strong at Darlington, 34.2 laps led per race. I think he's a good play. I like that he's a little bit cheaper than he was last race. Didn't have too much Denny Hamlin last race because he was like, around 11,500. That just seemed a little bit too steep for me, just based on how the salaries were last race. But 10,700, starting 16th, yeah, I have some interest. So don't mind taking some stabs at Denny Hamlin. If you look at his momentum this season, again, it hasn't been great because Joe Gibbs hasn't been amazing this season. But Hamlin had a strong race last, I want to keep wanting to say last week, but you guys know what I mean, last Sunday. As did Erik Jones. Truex looked strong too. Kyle Busch just kind of got into a little bit of a mess, but yeah, if you look at the momentum so far this season, average finish of 12, average running position of 15.3, does have a top 5, average driver rating of 82.5. Numbers haven't been too amazing for Denny Hamlin, but I liked how good he looked last race, so don't mind taking some stabs, starting 16th. Chase Elliott, he's starting 17th. He had a really strong race, and he kind of came on strong late because he wasn't. I just don't remember seeing Chase Elliott's name pop up too much when I was watching the race last week, yesterday. You guys know what I mean. But he finished really, really strong. He finished 4th? Yeah, 20th with first. I think he finished 4th. He got a top 5. But this has never been a great track for Chase Elliott, but Chevys have been so fast so far this year. And you guys saw at the beginning of the race, if you were watching, all the Hendrick cars were pretty much up front. Jimmie Johnson was up front. Alex Bowman was up front. William Byron was up front. I forget where Chase Elliott was, but he finished the race strong. But a lot of the Hendrick Motorsports cars had some trouble at some point in the race. But yeah, Chase Elliott, he had a really good race, and he was decently cheap too. And he moved up quite a few spots. I think he started, 15th, if I remember correctly, and he got a top 5. So it's a very good running for Chase Elliott, and he's decently, he was 9,800 last race. So he's a little bit more expensive, but it's still not too bad of a price here for someone that can contend for a top 5 and possibly get up front. But again, hasn't been his most impressive track so far. He's only averaging 33.2 Draftkings points per race. Average finish of 12, average running position of 13.3, but 2 top 5s. Just got another top 5 last race. And if you look at his momentum so far this season, he's been very, very good. Not quite as good as Harvick, but still been very, very good. Averaging nearly 60 DraftKings points per race. Average finish of 10.3. Average running position of 8.1. 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s. Averaging 40.8 laps led per race. He's been very good. Starting 17th, you're going to want to sprinkle in some Chase Elliott. I think a lot of these guys are going to be lower owned than they probably should, because I think Harvick's going to have heavy ownership. Kyle Busch is always going to have heavy ownership because he's Kyle Busch. But these guys are going to be these guys are kind of in a weird price range, I should say, because you got the PD guys, Jimmie Johnson, William Byron, Kurt Busch, all below them. So I'll be interested to see where their ownership lands. They were all high owned last race because it was kind of easy to fit them in with the Hunter Nemechek and Ty Dillon chalk. Not so much this week, so I think they're going to probably be a little bit lower owned, and they might be pretty solid GPP plays. Alex Bowman, he comes in at 10,000. He finished second last race. He qualified 19th for this one, and I think that makes him a pretty excellent play. So unfortunately for me, I was underweight on Alex Bowman. I had about 10% of him, which was not enough. I thought Keselowski was going to hold that lead for the entire first stage. Almost did, but then Bowman got him after the competition caution, and Bowman was just, he looked super fast. That speed carried over from his recent races so far this season. It just looks like Hendrick Motorsports is dialed in right now. They're going to unload fast cars, and I don't see why they wouldn't do that again. So starting 19th, you certainly got to have interest at 10,000. His price came up 1,000, but I think it's deservedly so because his car is super, super fast. He should honestly probably be closer to 11K as fast as his car's been. Starting 19th, he's going to offer us some PD upside as well, and it would not surprise me if he got up front because that's just how fast the Chevys have been this season. If you look at his stats at Darlington, they're going to be a little bit skewed because not last race, but the race before that last year, he was running really well, then had an incident, which is going to ruin his average finish and average running position, not average running position too much, but his average finish and DK points. Then his first race, he wasn't in this Hendrick Motorsports equipment yet. So it's kind of skewed a little bit, but he's been very good at these high tire wear tracks like Atlanta, Fontana, Chicagoland. He's been very good at, I think, only right behind Brad Keselowski in terms of performance at those types of tracks. So Alex Bowman, this is a really good track setup for him. He's averaging 40 DraftKings points per race here. Did get a top 5 last race, and he had he's averaging 25.5 fast laps per race at Darlington. And if you look at his momentum so far this season, he's only behind Kevin Harvick in my ranking system. He has been elite, averaging 62.3 DraftKings points per race, average finish of 7.5, average running position of 6.4, which I believe is only behind Kevin Harvick so far, average drive rating of 113.7, which is second best, 2 top 5s, does have a win. So he's been amazing this season, averaging 40 laps led per race, 33.8 fast laps. Nothing bad I can say about Alex Bowman. I think he's a excellent play. I think he'd be a decent pivot off of Kevin Harvick because everyone's going to play Kevin Harvick, deservedly so, but Alex Bowman was nearly as fast as Kevin Harvick, and he's about 1,600 cheaper. Problem is, I mean, if one of them gets up front and leads laps, I'd probably have to say it's going to be Kevin Harvick because I think that first pit stall is definitely going to come into play, but I mean, if one of these guys can get up front and lead laps, that's going to be absolutely amazing with that upside they have, especially starting around 20th. But I think both are excellent plays, and I think Alex Bowman just continues his strong season. I see no reason why his speed would drop off. Hendrick looked really good. I know a couple of their cars had problems. Jimmie Johnson got wrecked, or wrecked himself, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, like Alex Bowman, I think he's fine. Definitely going to want to have ownership. There's a lot of good plays in these teens just because of the invert. So I do think the ownership is going to be really spread out this week, which might make it really interesting for GPPs. So now that we have our place differential high price guys done, now we get a couple guys that are starting up front that have the potential to lead lap. And I think that's where it can get pretty interesting in GPPs. So if you're playing cash, I'm just going to play these guys starting in the teens and back. I think that's the smartest way to go because these guys can get up front and lead laps too. And if you play like a guy like Logano and he just falls back and doesn't lead laps, you're probably going to get destroyed in cash games. Even GPPs, that could happen. But if you want to play one of these guys and think they get up front quick and they dominate, lead like 100 laps before the other guys get up front and they can contend for a top 5 at the end, they'll probably be in the optimal. And they're definitely going to be lower owned than the guys that are priced above them and starting further back. And it's for a good reason that they're going to be lower owned. But look, so let's just talk about this. Brett Keselowski, he's 9,700. He's below 10K, which I like. He qualified 8th. Well, if you guys look at the cars that are up front, they're pretty bad. Like Brett Keselowski and Joey Logano by far have the best cars up front. Like we have guys like Ryan Preece starting first, Ty Dillon starting second, Clint Bowyer's not bad. I think he's starting fourth. But there's some pretty bad cars starting up front. And it's more so for Joey Logano who's starting third. I think he's the likely candidate to lead the early portion of the first stage. But let's just talk about Brett Keselowski first. So he qualified 8th. He had a really good race last night. I keep wanting to say last week. You guys know what I mean by I say last week. So he led a good portion of the early stage, lost that to Alex Bowman, ended up getting the lead at some point back. I forget, was it stage 2 or 3, late in stage 2, early stage 3. And the problem was he was doing really good. He had over 70 DraftKings points, and then he faded so hard late. I think he finished 13th or 12th. Really late fade for Brett Keselowski, which kind of killed him a little bit. Still did fine because of all the laps he led, but that late fade he had really, really sucked because I had a good amount of Brett Keselowski. But this has been a very good track for Kes. He's averaging 61.6 DraftKings points per race here, average finish of 7.5, average rating position of 5.5, average drive rating of 116.1, which is second best. Does have a win, 3 top 5s, 4 top 10s, averaging 61.5 laps led per race here, which is second only to Kevin Harvick after that dominant showing of Kevin Harvick last week. But yeah, I think Kes is fine in tournaments because he has an easier path to getting up front early. I mean, guys like Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, Truex, Hamlin, Elliott, Bowman, they're going to have to work their way up front. I think they'll do that pretty quick. But in terms of the first stage, I think it's either going to be Keselowski leading early or I think it's going to be Joey Logano leading early. And Brett Keselowski's had a really good car so far this season. Penske has shown speed. He's got an average finish of 9, averaging 55 DraftKings points per race. Does have a top 5, 4 top 15s, averaging position of 7.6. Nothing bad I can say about Brett Keselowski. Do I prefer the guys above him starting further back? Yes. But in tournaments, I don't mind taking some steps at Brad because I think he's going to be lower owned. And if he gets up front, leads the early portion of the race and contend for a top 5, he could easily outscore the guys that are higher priced than him. So I think he's a fine tournament play. Wouldn't go there in cash games. Joey Logano, he comes in at 9,400, and I think he's the most likely driver to lead the most laps in the first stage. And I say that because the drivers right in front of him are Ty Dillon and Ryan Preece. And if you're telling me Joey Logano can't get out in front of those guys, then he's going to have a big problem that race. I see no reason why Joey Logano cannot get up front, lead laps early. I didn't see the competition caution information. I don't know when that will be or if it'll even be like frozen where no one can lose spots again. But if that's the same case, since there's no practice, I mean, I see no reason why Logano can't lead the early portion of this race. And he's only 9,400. I know he wasn't that great last race, but he's been hot to start the season. If you look at the momentum rankings, numbers have been great so far, averaging 50 DraftKings points per race, average finish of 8, average rating position of 8.3, 2 wins, 2 top 5s. I mean, he's been great so far this season. Wasn't the most amazing race last week, but starting third, he should be able to get right around Ryan Preece and Ty Dillon. And if he can lead, I don't know, say he just leads the first stage. I'm not saying that's going to be the case, but just say for GPP, well, if you play him, he leads the first stage and gets a top 7, you're going to be looking pretty good at 9,400 price tag. So I think these are 2 good tournament plays for just hoping they lead the early portion of this race. If they don't, they're going to definitely get outscored by the guys starting further back. But that's why I think they're GPP plays only. And Logano's got a really easy path to dominating early, starting third. Right below him, we have Jimmie Johnson. He comes in at 9,100, which is a big, big price tag. I was hoping he'd come in that 8K range. He was 8,100 last race. But DraftKings really priced up these good place differential plays. And starting with Jimmie Johnson, starting 37th, over 9K. Man, that is absolutely a big price I had to pay for Jimmie Johnson. He's not going to lead any laps, more than likely. He was fast, though, for a short portion of that race before he ended up wrecking. But if you look at his numbers, they're going to be terrible because of what happened last race, and he pretty much finished dead last almost, and he started up front. So these numbers are going to get way skewed, but he has an average running position of 19.3. If he can top 20, yeah, we'll take it, but 9,100, I'm going to want a little bit more than a top 20. But he can definitely contend for a top 15, top 10. We saw him running up front last race. Chevy's got speed. Hendrick Motorsports has looked good. So we're definitely going to want exposure to Jimmie Johnson. I mean, I expect him to be very popular. He's a big name. I mean, he's got a lot of experience at Darlington. Hasn't been a great track for him recently, though. Only 1 top 15, 3 top 20s. We know Jimmie Johnson has been falling off late in his career. But, I mean, Hendrick's been so fast, and I know he stole the setup from Alex Bowman, so they're running the same setup. And as you saw, Jimmie Johnson was really fast that race. So, yeah, we're going to like Jimmie Johnson. There's virtually no downside to him besides the price tag. And he's had a good start to the season so far. His momentum's going to get killed a little bit just because of him wrecking out that race. So the average finishes all the way down to 15.5, only 30 DraftKings points per race. But average running position of 13.4, does have a top 5, 2 top 10s. It's been a good year for Jimmie Johnson so far. He was 5th in points before that race. Obviously, wrecking out, it's going to kill that. So he's been good so far. And starting 37th, there's basically no downside. So I definitely want a lot of Jimmie Johnson. William Byron, he comes in at 8,900. Another Hendrick car that got wrecked when he was up front. Sorry if it just cut really quick. I had to take a little water break. It's about to start coughing everywhere. But yeah, William Byron, he was like top 3, top 2. I want to say he might have been up front, but he was top 3 for sure. They ended up getting a flat and just hitting the wall a little bit, so it ruined his race. He finished pretty much in the back, 34th. But he's going to have a fast car. I told you guys in the live stream I thought he was an amazing pivot off of that Kurt Busch and Erik Jones chalk, just if you want to get lower ownership. And it was looking really good for a little bit, but then he broke down because of the tire. And he had an absolutely terrible race. And his numbers coming into Darlington were already awful, and they got even worse because of that. Averaging negative 3.8 DraftKings points per race, average finish of 30.3. I don't think a lot of people are going to play him just because of how he did last race. And I shouldn't say a lot. There's a lot of smart people who are going to say William Byron's a good play, which he really is. But if people are just looking at the game log of the fantasy points scored, people might just stay away from William Byron because of that, which I don't think is a good idea because he's starting 34th. He has top 10 potential. That's how good Chevys have been so far this season. Looked great before wrecking at an average running position of 15.6 here. I mean, if he can get a top 15 starting 34th, we will take it all day. I know those numbers at Darlington have not been good so far, but it's only a 3-race sample size, and he's just had a rough start. But I love the speed Chevy's showing. If you look at his average running position so far this season, it's 14.8, average finish of 20.5. But again, his race got screwed last week, so it's going to happen. He has 2 top 20s, 1 top 15. William Byron can contend for a top 10, so I do like him. He comes in at a really steep price tag of 8,900, but I think it's fine just because of the PD upside. I just wish he was a little bit cheaper. These price tags that DK gave these guys just make it a little tough this week to fit all these guys that we want in. Kurt Busch, he comes in at 8,700 starting 18th. So if you want to get off William Byron chalk and Jimmie Johnson chalk, I think there's 2 excellent options right below them that are not going to have near the ownership William Byron and Jimmie Johnson will. And that's Kurt Busch and Erik Jones. They were 2 of the most popular plays last week, starting Kurt Busch started 22nd, Erik Jones started 20th, if I remember correctly. They're starting up a little further up this time, which doesn't make them as much as slam dunks, but if you want to get off that William Byron chalk, you can pivot right to Kurt Busch starting 18th. We know how good Kurt Busch is at Darlington. He showed it to you guys last race, got all the way up to second, had an amazing run, and now starting 18th. So I think he finished third? Yeah, he finished third. He got top 3. But he was absolutely amazing. He's averaging 50 DraftKings points per race here. Average finish of 9.8. Average running position of 8. Average driver rating of 103.2. 5 top 10s the past 6 races here. 2 top 5s. Did wreck out of 1 race, which is going to skew his numbers a little bit. His numbers would be even better if you just took out that wreck. So Kurt Busch, I think he's an amazing pivot off of William Byron chalk because of just how good he is at Darlington. He's been much better than William Byron at Darlington so far. Much better than Jimmie Johnson. So if you're looking for a tournament play, there you go. Kurt Busch, who was last week's slam dunk cash play, now could become a really good tournament play. And so far this season, Busch has been good. Average finish of 9.3, running position of 12, averaging 40 DraftKings points per race. He's got 2 top 5s so far, 3 top 10s. I think Kurt Busch is an excellent play and definitely someone I want some ownership to. Erik Jones, his price dropped $700, and I'm not really sure why because he had a really good race. He started 20th, and I think he finished 7th. He was getting a loose wheel at the end of the race. He might have finished 8th. Actually, I think Reddick finished 7th. But yeah, Erik Jones was in the top 5 near the end. He was reporting a loose wheel. He had 2 loose lug nuts, so luckily the wheel stayed on, but faded a little bit. But his car was strong really late into the race. And then really, really late into the race, he faded a little bit. But yeah, Jones did what he usually does at Darlington. He ran very well. And numbers are still good here. We have a 4-race sample size from Erik Jones so far. He's averaging 60.1 DraftKings points per race here. Average finish of 5.5, which is only behind Kevin Harvick. Average running position of 8.2. Drive rating of 107.4. 2 top 5s, 4 top 10s, 1 win. Nothing bad I can say about Erik Jones. If you're looking for some pivots off of Jimmie Johnson and William Byron, Erik Jones and Kurt Busch are right there. I think they have higher finishing position potential, which if Jimmie Johnson and William Byron run into a problem, you're going to have a big advantage if you go with Kurt Busch and Erik Jones because they're probably going to be half the ownership just because of those guys starting that far back. So I think they're 2 excellent tournament options right there. Ryan Blaney, he's starting 5th. I do not have any interest in Ryan Blaney. Could he be one of the guys that gets up front because you got guys like Ryan Preece and Ty Dillon up there? Yeah, sure, it could happen, but this has really not been a good track for Ryan Blaney. Only averaging 20 DraftKings points per race here. Average finish of 20. Average running position of 20.9. The guy's just been getting unlucky so far this season. I don't see that changing here. I don't think he's going to get up front. There's really no room for error starting 5th either. He's probably going to fall back, finish outside the top 10. Really no interest from Ryan Blaney for me. And he's got his teammate Joey Logano right above him, who I think is more likely to lead laps. So I'll take Logano. He's been much better than Ryan Blaney here in his career so far. So no thank you on Ryan Blaney. Chris Buescher, 8,100. So after we got the starting order last night, I was thinking, all right, Chris Buescher, he's going to come in around 6K. He's going to be a really good PD play, lock and load. He's 8,100. DraftKings is just giving us no layups this week, which makes it really hard, but could work in our favor. But yeah, Chris Buescher is super expensive. And look, I liked him, but now he's that's a lot to pay for Chris Buescher, and he did not look good the last race. But this has been a good track for him. I will say that. He's averaging 30 DraftKings points per race here. Average finish of 18.2, which it was 14 before last week's race. Average running position of 18.5. 2 top 15s, 4 top 20s. Yeah, before last week, he was 100% on getting a top 20. Streak finally ended, but I think he's going to have a good race. So probably top 25, top 24, maybe crack the top 20 like he has before in recent years. But man, 8,100 for a guy like Chris Buescher just seems a bit much. He's had a good season so far. He was 14th in owner points, heading into the race. But man, he just did not have a good car last week. Got into a little bit of trouble. But that's a lot to pay for Chris Buescher. Can you sprinkle him in some lineups? For sure. You can even do more than sprinkling. I don't really care. It's just a lot to pay for Chris Buescher. I feel like he seems way overpriced. So yeah, you're going to have some ownership to him just because he's starting that far back, but it's a steep price to pay. And then Ricky Stenhouse Jr., he's 7,900. I was hoping he'd be low 7K, higher 6K. Man, he's 7,900. And I made the joke in the live chat that if anyone's going to wreck out early, it's going to be Ricky Stenhouse Jr. And first lap, he wrecked. He ruined his race. And now he's starting dead last, so there's only upside here. Problem is, they priced him up all the way to the moon at 7,900. I mean, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is like a low 7K, high 6K kind of driver. This is a lot to pay for Ricky Stenhouse. Let me get some water really quick. Okay, I forget exactly where I left off, but I know I was talking about Stenhouse and how he's starting in the back. But, I mean, he has not been good at Darlington. Not got a good track form, averaging 7.3 DraftKings points per race here. Average finish of 28.3. Average running position of 26.8. Look, if there's anyone to fade that's starting in the back, it's probably Stenhouse. Because the guy likes to wreck. His nickname isn't Ricky Stenhouse Jr. for nothing. I mean, the guy wrecks a lot. It's not a good track for him. He's way overpriced. I think I'd rather play Buscher, but I don't know. I mean, I like that Stenhouse is a little bit cheaper and he's starting further back, but man, if there's a guy to fade that's starting in the back, it's probably going to be Stenhouse, but you can't full fade the guy just because he's starting in the back, and he's in better equipment than the guys that are starting ahead of him. He should contend for at least a top 25, and if he can top 25, we're going to be happy. It's just he's been pretty bad here, but he does have a top 15, 2 top 20s, so I think Stenhouse Jr. is a good play, which is bad as that sounds to say, because I hate saying Stenhouse Jr. is a good play, but yeah, I'm definitely going to have some good ownership to him just because he's starting in the back. And if you look below him, we have a lot of guys starting up front, which really don't excite me. So Stenhouse Jr. is the best play in this tier. So as gross as that sounds to say, I just wish he wasn't this high priced. If he was like in the low 7Ks, I mean, yeah, he's an easy layup, but man, nearly 8K, like Chris Buescher, that's a lot. But they are really good place differential plays. Tyler Reddick, he is starting 14th, and man, I was really happy I was high on Tyler Reddick. He came in a lot lower owned than I thought he would be. I thought he'd be closer to 40% owned starting 29th or 28th last race. That was not the case. I think he was in the lower 20s, mid-20s, but yeah, the guy absolutely crushed in Xfinity Series. He was great at riding the wall, and that's exactly what you need to do at Darlington. Tyler Reddick has looked really good this year so far. He was nearly led laps. I forget what race it was. He was nearly up front leading laps, ended up wrecking, but Tyler Reddick has had a really strong year so far, and that translated into the last week's race at Darlington. He crushed. He finished 7th. He started 29th, finished 7th, had 63.5 DraftKings points. Look, this is the average numbers for track history. He only has one race here, so this is exactly what he did last race. Had a driver rating of 94.7, even had a penalty for an uncontrolled tire, went back to the back when he was in the top 10, drove his way all the way back up again. He just had an amazing car. Starting 14th, this makes him an interesting GPP play because I know it feels weird paying nearly 8K for Tyler Reddick, a rookie, and starting 14th. But I think it's fine in tournaments. If you want to fade Stenhouse for Reddick and just hopefully get a top 10 finish again, you could certainly do that. There's ways to get off the chalk here. Stenhouse Jr. is the much safer play, but I think Reddick has a higher upside in tournaments for like finishing position. So if you're hoping Stenhouse wrecks, you could pivot to Reddick and hope he can get another top 10 finish. And I wouldn't hate that idea. But yeah, this is a really good track setup for Tyler Reddick. It suits him really well. Likes to ride the wall, which was exactly what you had to do at Darlington. And if you look at his momentum so far this season, it's really good. He has an average finish of 17.3, but don't forget, he did wreck out of one race. Has an average running position of 14.8, 2 top 15s, 1 top 10, 3 top 20s. Tyler Reddick's been really good this year. Like the track setup for him. So if you want to sprinkle in some Reddick and GPPs, I totally get it. Old man Matt Kenseth, he comes in at 7,600, and I think he was in the optimal lineup. I had him in one lineup. It was not the optimal, unfortunately, but I'm pretty sure he made the optimal lineup, and I think the person that took down the $200,000 in the $1 million contest had Kenseth in his lineup, and it was a unique lineup, which I was not expecting a unique lineup to get first. I thought it'd be a big tie. But yeah, he won it by himself. I'm pretty sure Kenseth was in it. He started, where did he start, 10th? 10th or 11th? Or 12th, 10th, 11th, or 12th, somewhere around there. I think he gained like 1 or 2 spots, but he made the optimal. And look, Kenseth, he's been good here in his career. He has an average finish of 13.6, average DraftKings points at 32.7. It's been a good track for him. 2 top 10s, 3 top 15s. He's in a good car, Kyle Larson's car, which, if you know anything about Kyle Larson and Darlington, in that car, he's one of the best drivers in the entire field. So, I mean, with no practice, nothing, hasn't raced in over 12 months, Kenseth looked pretty good. He was able to handle his car. Price didn't really rise that much. So if you want to throw some Matt Kenseth in for tournaments and hope he can get a top 10, I don't hate it. And it's just another way to get off Ricky Stenhouse Jr. chalk. So Don't mind Kenseth. I mean, he ran really well. He was really impressive. Aric Almirola starting ninth. I will personally pass here. He's got an average finish of 17.7, average running position of 18.3. Does have 3 top 15s and 4 top 20s, but starting ninth, there's not a lot of upside here. So don't really have any interest in Aric Almirola. Can only see him falling back. Clint Bowyer, you're only playing Clint Bowyer if you think you can get up front and lead laps for the early portion of this race and contend for a top 10 at the end. But outside of that, you're not going to be playing Clint Bowyer. This has not been a really good track for him either. Only averaging 20 DraftKings points per race, average finish of 23, average running position of 20.1, 1 top 10, 3 top 20s. But starting fourth, there's really no room for error here. I don't think he's going to leap ahead of Joey Logano and lead the early portion of this race. So I really don't have much interest in Clint Bowyer at all. Austin Dillon, he is starting too far ahead for me. He had a really solid race. He started 16th last race, finished 10th. Go by the inversion. Pretty sure that's what he finished, but yeah, he had another good race. This is a really good track for Austin Dillon, but starting 10th, he's going to need a top 5 for us, or just at least stay around 10th. I mean, it's possible at this price tag. If he stays in the top 10 or like right around it, it could be fine, but it's pretty risky. But if you want to go there in tournaments, I guess that's not the worst thing in the world. He's averaging nearly 40 DraftKings points per race at Darlington, average finish of 12.5. Average running position of 16.2, 4 top 15s, 1 top 10, 1 top 5. It's been a very good track for Austin Dillon. He's just starting a little bit too far ahead for me. And there's a common theme for these guys coming up. They're all starting a little bit too far ahead because the equipment they're in and the talent's just not where they're going to finish. They're just starting a little bit too far due to the inversion. But Matthew DiBenedetto, he comes in at 7K starting 7th. He started 3rd last race, had no interest, and I have no interest again starting 7th. I don't really see it working out for him. I don't see him getting up front leading laps. I don't see him getting positive PD here. It's just not a play I'm really looking forward to. Average finish of 23, averaging 21.8 DraftKings points per race. Yes, I know he's in better equipment now than he has in recent years. Does have a top 10, but there's really no upside here for Matthew DiBenedetto. I'd rather play Christopher Bell, who comes in starting 24th at 6,800. He was having a pretty solid race. I think he was in the top 15. Then he ended up spinning out, which kind of hurt his day a little bit. Finished 24th, but he was looking pretty strong. And I expect him to finish higher than 24th as long as he can stop wrecking. It seems like he's done that every single race so far. But he's only going to have one race sample size here. He finished 24th, had 24 DraftKings points. He had an average running position of 20.4, which is slightly better than his average finish. I think he's going to move up. So I like Christopher Bell just for some PD upside. And if you're going to notice, there's not a lot of guys with PD upside 7K and back that are actually in decent cars. So we're kind of going to be starved for value this week, which kind of sucks because we have a lot of good expensive drivers that are starting further back. And a lot of these cheap drivers that we normally use, they're starting up front, and they're basically unusable. So this is going to make building lineups really interesting, in my opinion. Sorry to pause again. I'm losing my voice a little bit. I had to drink some more water. But I think we were done talking about Christopher Bell. I like him just for some PD upside. And again, a lot of these guys that are below 7K just do not have that much PD upside. So Christopher Bell is kind of the one that stands out starting 24th. And he's been pretty good equipment, so he should be able to move up outside of any wrecks. Cole Custer, he's starting 22nd, not starting 6,600. He's 6,600, starting 22nd. And again, he's going to have to be another guy I have interest in. I hate playing all these rookies, but Cole Custer has been pretty good at steep tracks in his career so far. You know, that's pretty much his Xfinity, but it's what we had to go off of. It's what I kind of went off of Tyler Reddick and worked out. I know Cole Custer didn't have the best race starting 22nd, but that's not too bad. He started 14th, but starting 22nd here, I think he can get us a top 20. He's pretty cheap at 6,600. And again, we just do not have a lot of value here. So it's not going to be the greatest PD play in the world, but I don't mind going with Custer here. He's in good equipment. He's in Stewart-Haas equipment. So I don't mind Cole Custer. It's not a favorite play of mine. We have two race sample sizes at steep tracks in the NASCAR Cup Series. He has an average finish of 20, average running position of 23.2. So it's not been amazing so far. It does have a top 20, but it's not been too great for Cole Custer. But again, we do not have a lot of good value plays with PD upside. So I think we're going to just have to be forced to play him in a couple of lineups. Ryan Newman, he is starting really, really high. I was really high on Ryan Newman last race, starting 21st. His car looked good all day. Ended up getting a penalty. I think it was for speeding. Kind of stuck him back into the 15 to 20 range for the rest of the race. But yeah, Ryan Newman looked good. He's 6,400, which again is just too cheap in my opinion. I'm not sure why he's this cheap. I think he should probably be above Matthew DiBenedetto in my opinion. It's been a good track for him. He's got an average finish of 14.2, averaging 35 DraftKings points per race, 5 top 20s, 2 top 10s, 3 top 15s. This has been a very good track for Ryan Newman. Not sure why he's this cheap, but starting 6th, that's just, I can't really do that. I mean, I don't think he's going to finish in the top 5. I really don't think he's going to finish in the top 10 either, maybe not even the top 15. So I don't have a lot of interest in Ryan Newman, which sucks because he's really underpriced, but starting 6th just makes it really tough to play him. Same with John Hunter Nemechek. I loved him last race. I thought he was an amazing pivot off of Ty Dillon chalk, which it was. I think he got 60 DraftKings points. So he got a top 10. When I touted John Hunter Nemechek, I was not expecting a top 10. I was hoping for a top 25. He blew me away. He's been really impressive so far this season. And now he's starting 12th, which sucks. They upped his price a little bit. But starting 12th, there's like no upside here. I don't think he's going to get a top 10 again. Yeah, he was driving really, really well. And if he top 10s, yeah, he'll have a good chance of being in the optimal again at 6,200. But he's starting 12th. It's not like he's starting 34th again. So there's a lot of downside for John Hunter Nemechek. I think people are going to chase that 60 DraftKings points and see his price and be like, yeah, he's starting up front. Maybe we'll get a top 5. Maybe people were thinking that. I just don't see that happening at all. I think he moves back. I think in all likeliness he finishes outside the top 20, despite how good he looked last race. So really no interest in John Hunter Nemechek for me. Just can't see myself playing a guy starting 12th with his kind of equipment. Daniel Suarez, he's starting 25th. Another guy, he worked out very well starting 37th. Even spun out at one point, but still had a pretty solid race. It hasn't been a great track for him. Average finish of 25.8. Average aim position of 24.5. He's in a lot worse equipment now than he used to be in. Now he's driving a lawnmower instead of Stewart Haas equipment. Starting 25th, it's not terrible. I just feel like he's going to finish right around there. I think he finishes anywhere from like 25th to like 30th. So there's not a lot of upside. I definitely think he outscores Ty Dillon and Nemechek, though. I'm probably Ryan Newman. Iffy on Ryan Newman, but I think he outscores Nemechek and Ty Dillon just because those guys are going to fall back. I think Suarez can kind of hang where he starts, which doesn't sound great, but we do not have a lot of options all the way down here. So Suarez isn't bad. Ty Dillon, he's starting on the front row, and guess what? He's not going to dominate the race. He doesn't have that kind of equipment. He's going to fall back and probably finish anywhere from 18th to 25th, probably. Maybe he can crack the top 15 at the end, but Ty Dillon is not going to finish in the top 5, guys. It's just not going to happen. If he does, you guys can make fun of me in the comments, but look, he doesn't have that kind of equipment. He's really good at Darlington, given his price tag, average finish of 18.3, averaging nearly 40 DraftKings points per race here, but he usually starts in the late 20s to mid-30s. Now he's starting 2nd. He's going to lose a lot of points. So no thank you on Ty Dillon. If people want to play him just because of how popular he was last week and his points, go ahead, not for me. Michael McDowell, he is starting 23rd. Again, these guys are just starting too high. We need some guys that are starting further back. There's just no upside with any of these guys, really. I mean, McDowell, he's probably going to finish probably around 25th. He's got an average finish here of 25.4, only averaging 21 DraftKings points per race, average running position of 25.8. If you look at the momentum so far this season, McDowell's got an average finish of 24.3. I don't see him finishing above where he starts, which, again, gives me no interest, but we're really running out of options here, so we might have to play some Michael McDowell just to fit in those studs. And there's really no good cheap guys, so I feel like the cheap guys we're playing, we just kind of got to hope they finish around where they start. Yeah, they might lose a couple spots, but I think we got to nail our expensive guys. And then if our cheap guys just don't blow up and wreck out of the race, I think we'll be okay. So I'm not expecting much out of any of these cheap drivers this week. Bubba Wallace, 5,700 starting 21st. It's not terrible. He's actually had a decent season so far. If you look at the momentum, he's got an average finish of 18.3, average line position of 24.3. He does have a top 10, 2 top 20s. It's not terrible. If you want to target someone in this range, I think Bubba Wallace has the highest finishing position potential, maybe besides Ty Dillon. But it's getting really ugly down here. Bubba Wallace is fine. Just throw him in there. Hope he finishes no lower than 25th, I guess, really. maybe you luck out and get a top 20, but there's just not a lot of good cheap options down here. Ryan Preece, I hope people play him. That's a terrible play. He's probably going to finish around 20 to 25. I know he had a pretty decent race last week, and he finished 20th, which is not bad at all, but they did the inversion. He started on the pole. He's not going to lead laps, guys. This is not iRacing. He doesn't have that kind of equipment, so no thank you on Ryan Preece. I just don't see how that's going to work out at all. I hope people play him because he's on the pole, but I just don't see it working. And I actually just realized I've skipped Corey LaJoie, which Corey LaJoie might be the guy people target. He's starting 31st. Now, it's not like Corey LaJoie is great or anything. Average finish of 30.5, only averaging 12 Draftkings points per race. But hey, he's starting 31st. I think he can move up a spot or two, which is something I can't really say about any of these other guys. So he's got that working in his favor. If you look at his momentum so far this season, he's got an average finish of 25.8, average time position of 26.2, and does have a top 20. It's doable for Corey LaJoie. He might be the guy we target in cash games at 5,500. Hope he just doesn't lose a couple spots and maybe get a top 30. So I feel like everyone's going to go to Corey LaJoie in cash games, or just as their cheap guy. I just hope he doesn't wreck, which starting 31st, I get it. He's probably going to have to be the guy we go to. I think he's probably the safest. Doesn't have the highest finishing potential like Bubba Wallace does or Ty Dillon, but they're also starting a lot further ahead of Corey LaJoie. So LaJoie might be the safest guy in this 5K tier. Then after that, it's pretty much just no thank yous. I'm not playing Yaley. Garrett Smithley, this season he's got an average finish of 35.3. BJ McLeod's got an average finish of 39. That guy's just complete garbage. Average finish of 36.7 at Darlington. Finished, 39th last race. Timmy Hill, no thank you. Brennan Poole. So, see, I don't mind Brennan Poole. He finished 27th last race. He's got 25 DraftKings points on the season. Brennan Poole has an average finish of 29.8, average time position of 30.9, which is not great, but relative to his price, it's not that bad. It's better than guys like Greg Golding, Timmy Hill, BJ McLeod. Problem is he's starting 27th, so there's a lot of downside there. He could get bottom 30. Maybe he sticks around his price tag. Not price tag, his starting spot at 27th. If he can get if he can finish higher than 30th, stay around 27th to 30th, that's not going to be too bad at 4,800. It's going to let you guys fit in guys like Kevin Harvick and Kyle Busch, so I could understand using Poole for that. Other than that, there's really no one else. No thank you on Quinn Huff, Joey Gase, Greg Golding, just not going to go there. So it's pretty ugly down low. I think that makes this week very, very, very interesting, and I'm really looking forward to this race to see how ownership shakes out. And I don't know if I mentioned this already, but the weather is awful for Darlington. We might not even be able to race till Friday. I don't know. I don't think they'll do it on Saturday because the Coke 600 is on Sunday. So maybe we don't even get a race this week, but if we do, that was the information. So I hope this was helpful, guys. If it was, remember to leave a like. If you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button. Really helps me out. Really appreciate it. If you're going to support me on Patreon, it's much appreciated. Put a lot of extra work into that. You get access to all the stuff I showed you guys earlier. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at ChrisPennell16. And with that, I'll leave you guys be. Enjoy the week. Hopefully we get a race in. Maybe the rain will stay away. Who knows? But with that, I'll leave you. Wish you guys the best of luck.